So we're going to catch you up on the situation. This is a story that yesterday I think caught a lot of Canadians perhaps off by surprise, off base. The idea that we would vote with other countries that had called for a humanitarian ceasefire in the UN. Bob Ray is our ambassador to the UN. I want you to listen to what he had to say, and then we'll come back. We'll talk to the Israeli consul, or the Israeli ambassador, rather. Here's Bob Ray from yesterday.
Canada continues to unequivocally condemn Hamas's brutal terrorist attacks against Israel on October the 7th, including the sexual and gender-based violence and the killing, the maiming, and the abduction of civilians. We also continue to call for the immediate and unconditional release of all remaining hostages and demand that they be treated humanely in accordance with international law. We recognize Israel's right to defend itself. In defending itself, Israel must respect international humanitarian law. Civilians and civilian infrastructure must be protected. The price of defeating Hamas cannot be the continuous suffering of Palestinian civilians. The ongoing humanitarian crisis has weighed heavily in Canada's decision to support this resolution.
That's part of Bob Ray's statement in support of that resolution. He was on with Vashi Kapelos earlier today and was asked about this because this is a change of course for Canada, always having voted along with Israel in these matters, and had this to say.
An awful lot of people have been killed and injured. Many, many people have been rendered homeless. I don't think anybody in Canada says we're going to sit back and do nothing and just wait and see how the war unfolds, and that's the best we can do. I don't think that's the best we can do.
He also, by the way, pointed out in part of the questioning that he has been, and I think he said it on his own, a supporter of Israel for the past 30 years or so. So this was a shift, no question, right? A shift in stance for the Canadian government. Anthony Housefather, Liberal MP, with his reaction, he's not the only one, by the way. Marco Mendocino also spoke out against this in his own party. Here's Anthony Housefather.
The motion was an unconditional call for a ceasefire. I do not support an unconditional call for a ceasefire. I don't believe the majority of my constituents support an unconditional call for a ceasefire. And it's my obligation as an individually elected MP to speak out when I think that Canada has abandoned its traditional position at the UN of support of Israel at a time when Israel's at war.
Iddo Moed is Israel's ambassador to Canada. He is on the line right now. Ambassador, thank you for being with us this afternoon. I know, and I've heard and read some of the comments. You're very, surprised by Canada's decision. What else?
Well, many disappointed at the stance that Canada has chosen to take at this point in time, because the use of the term ceasefire in the context of this exact conflict, of this war, is not appropriate. The problem is that we are dealing with a murderous, genocidal terrorist organization that has vowed to destroy the state of Israel. And they have mentioned that given the chance, they will repeat the atrocities again and again and again. So asking Israel to cease fire is actually inviting Hamas to further execute its plan and to murder more Israelis, and we are not going to do that.
Let me ask you a question. I think it's important to note one of the amendments that Canada had tried to put forth, which was tied to the release of the hostages and to Hamas putting down its weapons, that was not part of this resolution. That did not pass. Am I correct?
True. Would
that have made a difference?
What would make a difference is indeed if Hamas would lay down the weapons. But we have to remember, we had a de facto ceasefire until October the 6th. And on October the 7th, Hamas started a war against Israel by slaughtering 1,200 women, men, babies, elderly people, innocent lives, just because they want to kill any Israeli they can lay their hands on. They want to destroy the state of Israel. This is what we are dealing with. So we are not in a battle of words with anyone. We are at war with Hamas. And the point is that the international community should unite in this war against this genocidal terrorist organization, because behind it, it's not just this organization, but behind it, there is the Ayatollah regime of Iran, there is the Hezbollah terrorist organization, there is the Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist organization, the Houthis, and there are many more proxies in the region. And we have to understand that the war that we are waging right now is a war that the world needs to fight to protect its values and to protect humanity. It's not just Israel's war against Hamas. We are not at war with the Palestinians. We were working very hard to make the lives of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip better. But we have to remember that humanitarian conditions in the Gaza Strip were worsening under Hamas because, for example, they took the water pipes and replaced them with plastic ones to make rockets to be fired at Israel. So, again, the battle should be waged against them, and it's not a battle in the United Nations.
Ambassador, I'm thinking about the fact that you mentioned that there's a problem with the term ceasefire. Could I ask you to expand on that? And do you mean that it's being wrongly interpreted by citizens, by governments? What's the issue with the term ceasefire?
Yes, well, ceasefire is based on the premise that the civilized world uses when it wants to settle a dispute. It calls on both sides to cease fire and to get back to the table and to negotiate. However, in our case, we have a genocidal terrorist organization. We have butchers, monsters that only want to kill Israelis. That's the only plan. So if there's discussion of ceasefire, the battle is between Israel and Hamas. Hamas is shooting from densely populated areas into Israel. And what the international community says right now, stop fighting back. And then what? Who will protect Israelis? Can you imagine what would happen if Israel will stop at this very moment fighting against Hamas? Do you think that the Hamas terrorists will remain where they are? Do you not think that they will go back to the Israeli kibbutzim and towns and kill and rape and mutilate and burn people alive in their homes if they can? They said they will. So if they said, and if they have the means, and if they have the capability and the motivation, they will do it. So therefore, unfortunately, in a civilized world, we have to understand that sometimes we have to do with monsters that don't accept our terms, do not accept our norms. And so this is why I'm saying that this is a fight about the values that civilization, that human country, that normal countries, democracies uphold in order for us to have a global world order that benefits its population. We have here a group of terrorists that are a threat to another group, Israel, and we have to fight the war against them because otherwise they will continue.
Ambassador, I want to ask, because it seems to me what's been lost lately here in these images that we see every day of what Palestinians are living through is the fate of the hostages. Now, there was reason to be optimistic a couple of weeks ago when there was an exchange of hostages for prisoners, and nothing has happened since then. And I think a lot of people are wondering why, and why are those talks not resuming? What's the situation with that?
So our understanding is that Hamas was entering the negotiations with Qatar because they understood only one language, and that is the language of force, of pressure, of military pressure. And so they were willing to start this sort of horrendous exchange that forced us to liberate terrorists from prison in order to get our babies and women back. And so that worked, but at some point Hamas broke that pause that was agreed on and started firing again at Israel. So there is a problem here that Hamas tries to impose its terms on what is going on in reality there, and therefore makes it extremely hard for us to get our hostages back. And we have to remember that we are dealing with 138 hostages, among them children, women. We have an 12 months old baby called Ofir Bivas, who is held there without food, without access to the Red Cross, nobody knows if they are dead or alive. And this is just another war crime that Hamas is conducting there. But the fate of the hostages is unknown to us. We don't know where they are. We don't know if they are dead or alive. And we have no access to them from anywhere. And I think that is something that is very quickly overlooked by the international community, just as the fact that about 250,000 Israelis have been displaced from their homes, either because they were destroyed or because they were unsafe along the border with the Gaza Strip or in the northern border of Israel.
Ambassador, we're going to have to leave it there. We thank you as always. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your time.